Hey, you're listening to Blindsight. Let's go. Mental health isn't something to take lightly. It's time to fight. It's time to thrive. Let's do this.
Welcome to Blindsight. This is Bill Lundgren, your host usually on this program, but we're making some changes in order to cover the subject that we'll be talking about today, which is active listening and actively remaining silent in order to increase in communication and actually in many ways to increase a sense of connection with the person you're talking to. So what we're doing this program is we have an additional host on the program, and you've been listening, I hope, to the two previous shows, and will recognize that Bethany Joy Boring is going to be a co-host this time, which will give us a chance to do some role-playing, do some ways of learning to communicate with other people, which is a difficulty you might notice nationally, not just around the blindness community, but people are really right now having trouble listening to one another. But I think for the blindness community, since we can't see the person, or many of us cannot see the person clearly, we have cut off one of the ways that people communicate. So we need to pay attention to other means. And if you're like me with a hearing deficit as well, it's, sometimes can feel real daunting. But anyway, Bethany, welcome as my co-host today.
Thank you, Bill. I'm glad to be here. I feel like I'm going up in rank. I'm enjoying this.
Well, I think that this has been needed for us to explain this issue of talking with other people, because
Yes.
I know for me, I really have a difficult time shutting up. And you may have noticed in the other two episodes that we did, and but of course, that's the way I am. But that's not always helpful in communication, and we're trying to teach the right technique for communication. Now, what do you know about communication?
I know a lot about communication, but I know it takes two sides, right? You have a listener
Now,
and
wait
you
a minute.
have
Wait.
someone that's communicating.
Yeah, but you see, it's the speaker who really should be front and center.
I don't know about that. The speaker should be front and center.
Yeah, that's right. You're supposed to listen to me.
I'm supposed to listen to you. No. I think you got that wrong. Completely wrong there, Bill. I have
Come on.
I have to go
now.
against you on that one.
What do you have to say? I mean, you just sort of jump in and say what you need to say.
Oh, just jump in and say what I need to say? Okay. I don't feel like you're listening to me at all. I just
What?
feel like you're just trying to be
I'm not listening
making
to
sure
you.
you get
What do you
your-
mean
Hey,
I'm not
you just-
listening
what?
to you?
It always goes like this. Everybody always treats me this way. You always talk over me. You don't listen to what I'm having to say. I just don't even know if I want to be here
Well,
anymore.
come on. It's fame and fortune for you to be on this program, especially with me.
Yeah, that's where I'm making the big bucks, right? Yeah, you're right. No, I don't know, man. I'm not going to put up with this anymore.
I think we'll stop here.
Yeah.
What would be the best way to say what we were doing, how we were doing it, in a way where I would listen to you or you would listen to me, and we would feel like we were really communicating?
Yeah. Well, if we start from the beginning there, Bill, because I wasn't even sure I was going right with the flow. I'm glad we were acting. We got our acting degrees from this podcast, don't you know? But anyway, first thing we need to pull out in all of this is what was the moment where tension started? So what was the moment of our conversation, do you remember, Bill, where it just seemed to go awry just a little bit? Do you remember?
Well, I think when I just sort of try lording over you and not even listening to you.
What did you say? Do you remember?
Quite honestly, I don't. And like most people, do you remember what I said?
Well, I remember you said this phrase, which, and if we're careful, that's another thing. Our words can be so powerful, and a lot of times
Right.
they come out in a way that we may not mean.
Right.
But you said the speaker is supposed to be the one that's in charge. You said the speaker is the one that's in control, and I'm supposed to listen to you. Do you remember saying that?
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's when the tone changed completely. Anytime we use the word should is like not a great word to use in conversations, don't you think?
That's absolutely right. Absolutely.
And so it really when the transition started is when it became one person over another. Now, this is different. If it's
Now let me
if it's a work environment, it'd be different, but we're just coming in this as co-equals.
right.
So the second you asserted authority over me, that already put me in a defense mode.
And then what happened for you?
Yes, and then I wanted to protect. And so if we could put this in an ordinary everyday situation, can you think of something that this would play out either maybe in a relationship, maybe in a friendship, maybe even in your own life, Bill? Has this like something like this happened where it was equal and then all of a sudden somebody tried to maybe take more ownership or more authority in a place that they didn't need to?
Sometimes that happens between parent and children.
Mm. Mm.
I remember one thing I remember as a kid, I was real angry about something. My grandmother came in to intervene, and she said, "You're not angry. You're just sad because your father's no longer here."
Mm.
And I remember that because it was such a non sequitur,
Yeah.
but she was the adult figure. And so
Wow.
she's supposed to be right. And this happens all the time in our relationships with people where one may be, as you say, at work, the authority figure, and you have to decide whether to swallow it or whatever.
Yeah.
But the issue is, well, how do you define what the issue is and what in the situation that we just did, what would have been a more effective intervention to get me to wake up and say, "No, wait a minute. What was there?"
Yeah, I think it takes it two sides. I mean, here's the thing. We can't always tell. I don't know about you. I know I'm off a lot, but I can't always predict what the other person is feeling.
Right.
And we're in a society now where we don't always share if we've been hurt or, what we're paying attention to at the moment. And it's not always safe to do this. But I tell you, 9 times out of 10, if it's a safe environment and I admit, like, wow, I'm feeling tension right now, I'm almost feeling like I need to protect myself and I just need a moment to kind of wake up to what's happening.
Right.
That's a huge awareness right there to be able to do that. But we're not always in that environment. And so, first thing that I always try to tell people in any conversations is bring your whole body into the conversation, meaning stay attuned to what your body is saying. And
Exactly.
it's so easy to forget that. And we're virtual, right? But I noticed, and we kind of set this up ahead of time. I knew it was coming, but I didn't know when. And I just noticed myself kind of tense up. And I was like, whoa, I know this is all pretend, but I was aware of that. Like I noticed my breathing kind of got a little shorter. I noticed I don't know how to explain it. It's almost like a tenseness in my chest and my stomach. I almost noticed I tried to lean forward to make sure I was hearing what I was hearing. And that doesn't do anything for me. I can't see and I can't hear. There's no speaker. My speakers are my ears. So leaning forward does nothing for me. And so just that reality of my body was saying something to me and I was aware of that. But that takes a lot of practice, doesn't it, Bill?
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. And I could feel myself tensing, being so oppositional too. It's not an easy stance for me to be in. But the point is, both of us then had body language that we had to pay attention to.
Yeah.
and then respond. And when we talk about meeting new people, our body reaction, I think, is very important to pay attention to, because if we are talking to someone new, but we feel relaxed, and then we can, pay attention to that. If we're feeling tense, then something's going awry, and we have to decide whether we continue this or not.
Yeah. But you bring up a good point, though, too, Bill, because I know I work with people in my everyday. I work with small groups, and we bring up, what are you feeling in your body? And 9 times out of 10, especially when people start doing this work, they're like, I don't feel nothing.
Yeah.
Right? And it's not, so can we just say, because I just want to speak to the person out there that's going, yeah, I don't speak that language, Bethany. Like, I feel nothing. You're normal. Because we function 99.9% of what we do every day, we function from the neck up. We don't like to function from the neck down, because that's where we feel pain. That's where we feel some things that we had to push through or swallow it, like you said. We don't want to validate what we're feeling. We want to just press through. And by doing that, we function from the neck up. And so to the person out there that's like, yeah, I don't feel anything, I have no idea what to do, how you said, start from the beginning and just take that off. But then also just be prepared for when you go into nature or when you're having just a calm moment. Pay attention to what your body is telling you, because you have to start with that awareness. So you can't enter into a conversation and realize, oh, wow, I'm feeling tense in my shoulders, if you don't know what it feels like to be light on your shoulders.
Right.
You have to start somewhere. So give yourself grace. Don't go out today and be in the middle of a tense conversation and go, where do I feel this in my body? Because that's not the right time to practice. The practice comes before these kind of hard conversations. Is that something that you can relate with, Bill?
Very much so. Very much so. Yet, that's the one thing that we don't pay attention to just by habit, because we, particularly, I think, someone who's blind, they may feel constantly tense because they can't see what's happening, and they have to be ready to react in a moment. So to not feel anything is really kind of I'm not sure if that is a description of feeling nothing, or just feeling that tenseness all the time and just taking it as normal.
Yeah. Man, I like that. I'm just sitting with that myself, because you're right. And then if you're feeling tension, let's talk about some things when you're listening and also talking. So let's talk about from the listener perspective first. So if I'm listening to you, and my job as a listener is to think of what I need to say next, right, Bill?
Right.
What? I don't know if is that really my job, to think of what to say next, or am I listening to what's coming out of your mouth?
That may, how about if I put it another way? Is that something that is an automatic response on your part when, particularly in a tense situation, what do I say next to deal with this?
Oh, yeah.
And, because if as soon as we get into something that feels oppositional, we're going to tense up.
Yeah.
And if we're used to being tense, we won't notice the difference. But if we feel like we have to measure up, we have to combat. I was coming on very combative.
Mm-hmm.
So it's real hard to be not combative when you're up against that. So you're going to be combative. I just generated that, I'm assuming.
Well, and stop right there, because that was exactly, sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you. But what you just said, that assuming part, that's what I was kind of listening for, because when we're listening, the listener job is to not assume, which is so hard, because here's the thing. What really escalated was me coming back at you at the same tone that you were coming at me, assuming that you were angry. I never stopped once and validated it. I never said stop once and said, Bill, what I hear you saying is, instead I just went back to how, just not even validating you, just continuing the argument. So, and all that to say, part of the listener's job is to not necessarily assume, but to look for clarity in what they're hearing. And so, does that kind of, what do you say? Am I right at all with that, Bill? Because I know I struggle with
It
that
makes
a lot.
And I do too. I think it's absolutely right, because once we get into confrontation, we bite the bait and we get confrontational rather than sitting back and say, hey, what's the conflict here? Or just kind of like, wait a minute, I need some clarity as to what's going on right now, which in a sense is you, the listener, is taking control, which is what was needed here. I was out of control. And if we can train ourselves in that kind of a situation to step back and say to ourselves real quickly, what's going on here? Or even say it out loud.
Yeah.
And say, there's a confrontation here. What's that all about? Then we begin to to regain control.
Yeah. And you're inviting in curiosity. Curiosity works a lot better than blaming.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And when there's tension in the situation, it is okay. You can I think you can even say, I'm feeling some anger from you, identifying the feeling. Or it sounds
or maybe even I'm sensing some anger.
Yeah.
Because and I'm not saying wrong, indifferent, nothing, but I do know with some of the one-on-one clients that I work with, when they say, wow, that makes me feel, it almost sounds like they're either taking ownership or they're trying to take emotions away from the other person or put responsibility on themselves or put responsibility on the other person. So if you go, I'm sensing, that's kind of like, or am I sensing? Or, you know what I'm saying? And I'm not saying right, wrong, and different in every situation, but what I mean here is, again, it goes back to the whole assuming thing and goes back to vocabulary, because I could have said that and we could have totally misinterpreted what you just said, Bill. And I could have just gone on my own tirade like I'm kind of doing. But,
Yeah. Well, see, the problem is that we get caught up in the emotion and the intellect goes out the window. And somehow we have to, sometimes just by, if I started and you just were silent for a moment, and that would have stopped me because I wasn't getting anything back. But but you were right in there. It was a trigger for you. And we have to be aware of those triggers and step back and say, wait a minute, let me assess this for the moment. And that's where silence is real helpful, I think. I want to back off for a minute. We've been talking about how we are able to tell our story. Now, what we just did was when we go in terms of reacting to each other, what happens. But now when we're getting into talking our story, then we're on a little different plane. And from one of the things that we're stressing is finding people with whom we can be safe. Now, right in the episode that we just had, I'm sure you felt I was pretty unsafe to trust anything. So your interest in being able to share your story with me would be minimal. Unless
true.
I can prove to you that I'm safe to talk to. And what would I have to do in order to recapture that or give you a sense of safety?
Well, I mean, safety begins with curiosity, right? But then also giving that person that place where they are welcome as they are. And even welcoming emotions into that space.
Right.
So if somebody, first of all, giving them permission, I know in my own situation, I had to wait for people to give me permission to share my story. To go, hey, Bethany, I want you to know that anything you share in this room is safe. And I've heard that so many times, and how many, like that, even saying that, I feel kind of knotted up in my stomach. I'm like, how many times has that not been right? So I really had to kind of, like we talked about last week, tossing some eggs to somebody to make sure they hold on to it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so providing that's a safe environment, the next thing I look for was, and I had to get used to this, we kind of touched on this a little bit, but the ability to be silent. I can share my story and I don't need to be fixed. I don't need to necessarily have somebody pray for me and make it all better. I just need to know that you're with me. And sometimes the best way of doing that is saying nothing at all.
Mm-hmm. I gave an example last week of if you go into like a bar or something and someone 10 minutes after you've met them, they've told you their entire life history and you haven't even asked for it. That's where somebody isn't paying attention and is vulnerable to some damage, or at least the other person, the listener, is wanting out. But what you're saying is, I want to share my story, and I want to know, and you're not saying this in so many words, but what I would feel is I want some evidence that you will listen to me.
Yeah.
Because
and that you're with me.
And that I'm with you, and because I feel so vulnerable if I tell my story.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll share an example personally from my life. I mean, I know when I was going through just a lot of the vision and hearing loss that I was, and this is years ago actually, and I've just keeping it real because I know I'm not the only one. I struggle with panic attacks where, these emotions would come up and I never was brave enough to have it in front of another person. Like I always felt like it was something that I needed to hide. And walking through this moment that I was, learning to be a single mom, hearing all the pressures of a full-time job. There were some other things going on that day. I remember walking into my friend's office that worked at the same place that I did. And this friend could tell that I was just like carrying it all. And I almost felt like I was going to break. And if you've ever had to walk through panic attacks, you just know that moment that's like, oh, shoot, I can't do this right now. But it's almost like you feel like you have to keep the wave down from like exploding. And so I sat down in my friend's office and they shut the door. And they just said, not knowing anything, they said, I'm with you. And that person just sat there in the chair. And I remember I couldn't even look this friend in the face. All I could do at that moment was kind of, I don't know how to explain it. I took my right foot and kind of felt my friend's shoe. So I knew that they were still there. And we just sat. And I don't even know how long it went for. And eventually a tear came. And eventually two. And then the rest of it. And it's probably one of the first times in my life that I can admit that I cried in front of another human being. That I felt free enough to do that.
Right.
And I don't remember him saying anything during that whole conversation.
Right. So with
there was no words exchanged, and that moment changed everything for me.
Powerful moment, a powerful story.
So I'm wondering if you have something like that you can relate to, Bill, where somebody just met you in silence, or maybe if you felt uncomfortable in silence. Like, can we just talk about that? Like how hard that is, especially if somebody's crying or going through something and you just want to like say something or fix it. I don't know. Maybe I'm the only one that feels that.
I had, in fact, not so long ago, there was something going on with me physically, and I couldn't explain it. And the friend that I was with, he just waited until I felt like I could say something. And there was a moment of silence. if he had tried to say, "Oh well, what's going on?" and I'm struggling trying to be even able to talk, it wouldn't have
Mm,
worked. But
yeah.
he just remained there quietly. He knew that I would speak at some point,
Mm,
and made all the difference in the world.
right.
And uh, and that's when we're talking about both people being silent made a
Yes.
big difference.
Yes. And it's hard. I mean, I know when I was losing a lot of my vision, silence scared the crud out of me because I was also losing my hearing. And so I had to go through counseling and other things to feel safe with myself and the silence before I could welcome somebody else into that space with me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, one thing I do, another thing I do in my groups is that we practice silence, and it's stinking hard. I could say a lot of other words about that, but it's
Right.
hard
It is
because we're
hard.
not used to it, especially in today's culture and environment. And so, it really is a gift when we've done our work and we know that we don't have to fix, and we know that not everything has to be solved, but that we can simply be with. It's a gift that we
Exactly.
offer somebody. Yeah.
And one of the, as I mentioned earlier, one of the things about those of us with hearing difficulty, those of us who are blind, we don't have the visual uh, cues to tell us what to do or
Yeah.
what the other person is thinking or doing. You had a physical cue of the foot.
Mhm. Yes.
They said the person was there. You said it. The person was there. That was all you needed,
Yes.
and you knew to be silent, and she knew to be silent,
Yep.
and
Yeah.
that's the important thing that we have to get across to people, because some of my friends who are deaf talk all the time because they don't want to deal with the silence,
Yeah.
and because they can't hear it.
Yeah.
And I think that for me, and I still get into this, since I can't see the person, I'm not getting the visual cues, so I think I have to fill the space.
Mhm. Yeah.
And I
And
know I'm not alone in that.
no. And I don't know, as we're having this conversation, I'm reminded of, and I don't know if you can relate to this, Bill. So I don't know all your story, but for me especially, I have these moments where my hearing aids die. And that is the freakiest moment, especially now with the limited vision that I do have. It is, I don't like that feeling because I feel like I can't protect myself.
Mm-hmm.
And so in silent moments, like I literally catch myself doing this. Like if it gets quiet, I literally tap on my hearing aid to see, okay, is it me or is it okay? You know? And if the hearing aid's on, I'm like, oh, okay, this is silent. Like like it takes me a good couple seconds to actually enter into that space because I have to give myself permission not to protect and just be with that person. And so I'm wondering if you can relate to that. But I know with vision, struggles, I need to know where I'm at. I need to know what's going on in the environment. And if it gets silent, I need to make sure something's not wrong with me. I need to know that I'm safe. So I'm wondering if that resonates at all with you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Uh, just a few moments ago, uh, I was talking to Jonathan, and something happened on his end. It got cut off. And then I immediately felt like I had to do something. It's something I did. I thought it was my computer was gone, or my microphone had gone dead. It's an automatic thing that we feel somehow. I think as compensation for the loss of a sense that we put on ourselves. There's if there's something wrong with this picture, it must be me.
Hmm. Yeah. I wonder if that's like, I'm just curious if that's I'm curious to hear from other people how common that is, because I know it's just, especially in my life, I haven't, like, it's almost dangerous to admit to somebody that I can't hear, that I can't see. It's almost easier just to press through it. And so in these examples, in these hard story situations, it's so easy to pretend like we're pressing through it when we're actually not okay.
Right. Exactly. We fake it.
Yeah. So to be in an environment where we don't have to fake it, I can imagine where either, for me at least, I know it's like when I first started experiencing these safe environments, it took me months to actually start opening up. So to go in it with that conversation, to know that this isn't going to happen immediately, you're not going to walk out the door. I mean, I'm not going to say you can't, but most likely you're probably not going to walk out the door and find that. But at the same time, just be aware of the work that has to happen on both sides, not just with the storyteller, but with the listener. And to find that combination, I mean, it takes work on both.
Yes, it does. And I think one of the things that and we were thinking about doing this, can the listener ask us in the beginning, would it be a help if the listener could say to us, do you want me just to listen? Do you want me to uh, react? Or do you want me to give some advice or some kind of, uh, some talk about solution? If we
Mhm.
know what the score is or what the person is willing to do, we can just say, no, I'll be okay if you just listen. I need you to listen. And if there's silence, you say, that's what I asked for. When you say to yourself, that's what I asked for, silence, so that I can get
Mhm.
my thoughts together and be able. So in other words, you're giving permission, but you're giving yourself permission to just be comfortable with the silence of the other person. If you know what the
Yeah.
score is, it's easier.
Yeah. Well, and even that's something that we can that's a good practice, even when we hear somebody share a story. It doesn't even have to, because I don't know about you, but a lot of times I find myself, maybe because I've been told that I'm a safe person, so I'm not bragging, but I have one of those signs that I guess I don't see, that people come up to me and just share with me their story, which is great. I enjoy it. But doing this after they share with me, they might not even know why they're sharing with me. When we present ourselves as a safe place, people want that connection. People want to share. It's just that
Yes.
natural, thing that happens. So the more we practice this, the more we become a safe person. And by doing that, after somebody shares, like, wow, that, first of all, that means so much that you shared that with me. You can even say the emotions that are coming up for you. And you're like, man, I really want to be with you. So would it be best for you right now if I just gave you some silence? Like, I'm not going to go anywhere, just sit with you in this. Or maybe you just want to share a little bit more with me, and I would love to sit here with you and hear more. Or
Right.
maybe you want some stories or advice, so you can even mention, or they might have something completely different, and you can go back and forth, like, they're offering this. Can you respond to that? Or can you offer something else? You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
so, just to have that conversation even after is powerful too.
Yeah. But you see, you give permission to the other, both in terms of setting the role that
Yeah.
you're having, that you're taking, and you're also giving permission to hear more, which is, for me would be very gratifying to
Mhm.
what you say, how you felt about what you heard from me, and then inviting me to say more, and then I have the option, if I want to say more, or I can say, no, I think I want to do that at another time or whatever
Mhm.
it is, so that I'm in control. And I think this is one of the
Yeah.
things where those of us in this kind of situation is to feel in control and safe,
Yeah.
as you say, safe, but in control, because we know this is someone we could do that to be able to share and feel safe.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I,
Well, Go ahead.
I was thinking about, again, my childhood. My my mother and grandmother would constantly say to us, don't tell the neighbors. Don't tell them, anything. They were a little bit paranoid about it.
Mm.
But there was a neighbor that I would run to who, when I was there, she listened. She didn't give a lot of advice, but she listened. And she also gave me some cookies and milk. And to my knowledge, she has never shared anything that I shared with anybody, including my family. But it was just her silence and listening that let me know that the world is made up of people like the adults in my house. They were afraid of anybody finding out anything.
Yeah.
And maybe that's what made me a counselor. I don't know.
I love it though.
Yeah.
So, Bill, we've been talking so much about what it's like being the listener, but I kind of wanted to transition to what it's like sharing our story. And what do we do if maybe we're sharing and we don't really feel safe with the person that's supposed to be listening? Do you kind of know where I'm going with that?
Yeah. The way I would frame it, if the person responding in ways that just don't feel right to us. With my grandmother, she identified that I had a feeling, which was anger, but then she denied that that was the feeling I was having, which was confusing, and saying it was something else and something I didn't. Or someone would say, well, the biggie is when somebody steps in and says, well, here's what you need to do.
Yep.
And that doesn't feel safe.
Exactly. Yeah. And what about, I don't know if you've ever done this, be in the middle of a conversation and then somebody starts sharing the story and you're like, oh yeah, this happened to me.
Yes.
And totally not even validate what they've been sharing. I don't know if that's
Right.
happened. That's another reason of not feeling safe.
Another way. Yeah. Yeah. There are all kinds of cues where they're moving it back to them rather
Yes.
than to me.
Yeah. So if you were doing that to me, because I know you would never do that to me, but if you were doing that to me, how would I respond in a way that has you feel validated, but yet also has you decide if you want to continue with this conversation or not?
You mean if the listener starts telling their story in the middle of my story?
Or anything. Like, let's say I'm sharing my story and you respond in a way that feels uncomfortable. How can I respond to you in a way that makes you feel, because you don't want to go off on that person. At least I don't think you do.
Yeah.
You want to make them feel validated, but yet also invite them back into what's happening. So how do you do that gently, set your boundary, but then also do it in a gentle way that offers that person back into connection if they're ready for it?
Well, if one way that comes to mind immediately, if the person say, oh, I had this experience, and then you can step back in and say, yeah, that's exactly what what I had. And then you can go from there. In other words, to validate what they're saying, but bring it back very quietly to yourself to complete your story. Or you can even say, but let me complete my story and we can talk more about our similarities or something like that. If you don't just cross them off, but say, oh yeah, this is valid and I appreciate you sharing that, and then continue the story and see if the person then return to the listener. How does that sound?
No, that sounds good. I like that. And you're giving that, you're validating theirs, but then you're also saying in a nice way, hey, I was kind of sharing a story here.
Right.
And see if they're willing to go
let
with
me complete
you.
my story and let's see if it continues to be similar to what you're sharing.
Yes. I like the way you said that. Let's see if it could be similar. to what
Yeah.
you're sharing, and that offers curiosity too. So, well, what if I go and I like, let's say you're sharing a story about your hearing loss, and I go, Psh, Bill, that's not true. I have hearing loss, and it's not like that for me. So that can't be right.
No, if you're denying, you say that's not a hearing loss. Then the most, this is the story of my hearing loss, and this is the experience that I have, which doesn't invalidate what that person is saying, but saying, you're validating your story, and just continue with the story. If the person protests and say, okay, we each have our own story, and I would get out of the situation if the person continues, because that's the thing. We don't have to put up with this.
Yeah.
We don't have to stay in that if somebody is denying what we're saying.
Yes. Yes. Can we just say that again? Because I just feel like we need to really take some time that just verbalize what you just said. We do not have to stay in a conversation with someone who makes us feel unsafe. We don't have to go, you make me feel unsafe, stranger
No.
danger, and run away. Like, we don't have to do that. But
Yeah.
we don't have to stay in that type of deep conversation with them. We can pivot to either a lighter conversation or, there's ways to, we're very creative in getting out of conversations with places that we don't feel comfortable.
Right.
Do you have to say anything about that, Bill?
Yeah. I one of the things that I keep looking at is the levels of intimacy. And, if you're sharing more and more of your stuff, more about you, and I keep beating up my mother, but she was just a perfect example of this kind of thing that we're talking about. As a therapist, I wanted to, tell my feelings and so forth. And she was so uncomfortable with that, she would immediately talk about a book that she read. So that's moving from intimacy, which I was endeavoring to do, to something she felt safer with to talk about something distant, a book she read. And I could fight it, or I realized that's her method. So I couldn't look to her for the kind of good feeling that I felt I needed. I had to go to other people, but it's that paying attention to what the other person says and not necessarily get offended by it, but say, this is where the person is. Doesn't want to get any deeper with me. So I'm free to decide I'll talk about the book or I'll go along with what the person wants to talk about, and then stop the trying to be close to them, because there are lots of people I can be close to. Like I was talking about being able to go to the neighbor.
Yeah.
And I don't have to get it from everybody. And that's
I
the
don't have
hardest
to
part.
get it from everybody. Yeah, that's profound, that statement. I don't have to get that level of intimacy from everybody.
Right. I have friends that I wouldn't share a whole lot with, but they're good friends. And friends in the sense of, we do things together. And I have a friend of mine who really does not want to share anything in his personal life with me. But, so I understand. See, part of it is we have to understand that not everybody wants to be as close as we might want to be with them.
Yeah.
There are some people who just have a certain level of closeness, and that's as far as they go. And we can make a decision not to have anything more to do with them, or, okay, there's this part of them works for the two of us. And I will just keep this part of my life for somebody who I can trust to carry it.
Yeah. Yeah, and it reminds me, just, I keep on bringing this up. I don't know. I mean, everybody's got different journeys in this vision loss thing, but to be in a place where it changes, 'cause I'm still walking that out, and it changing like it does. There are certain people I have in my quote marble jar that are different than I had previously. When I named that term marble jar, I don't know if you've heard of that, but Brene Brown coined it. I don't know. It could have probably come from somebody else, but that idea that we only have so much capacity to be with so many people in that deep way.
Right.
And it's not that we don't have other friends, they're just not in that marble jar with us. So I only had certain people that I really felt like I could say safe about, like, wow, it took an hour, I felt like, to get like I was on solid ground today because my vertigo was so out of control. Or it could be, just I looked at my kids' homework today and I couldn't see it and I didn't know what to do. Some of those moments, it's not something I post on Facebook. It's one of those that I share with certain things, but at the same time, it's like you have victories in that same moment that you can share with those people because they've been with you in the hardest times. Those are the same people that you want to be with you in those victory moments too. Like, I took my white cane out today, or I got my guide dog and he didn't pee on my shoe. Yay. It's just stuff like that. And so all of that to say, there are people that you can have in those tight spaces. You're not going to have everybody. You don't want everybody in those tight spaces with you. But when you make the effort, you make the work, when they're willing to do the work as well, you have this oncoming beauty in places that you didn't know could possibly exist. But it does. It's a two-way street. It happens on both ends.
Yeah. I couldn't have said it better. Yeah, I appreciate that. Because we do have to be selective. And, we kind of have, like if we think of circles around us, we have one circle where the intimate people are. And then you go to the next circle beyond that. There are people that we can be with under circumstances. But there is another circle of larger group of people that we're just superficial friends, if we want to use that language. But that's okay. And it's what works for us. And that's where we get lost is, we may find that we are trying to take care of other people when we have a right to be taken care of too.
And not just because we're physically struggling in some way. It's because our story matters. Your story matters. And I just feel like somebody needs to hear that today, that even those places of your story that you haven't felt safe to talk with anybody, and who knows when that's going to happen. But just know that your story matters.
Yeah.
Knowing what you have to share matters. You're worth staying in the room for and with. And so don't give up that fight. Don't give up looking for those right people, those safe people, to not only just share your story with, but to actually sit in the room as they share their hard moments. Because it really is a gift that goes both ways.
Yeah. And you see, the thing is that it's a mixture of our being able to share, but share only so much to get a sense of where the listener is and whether the listener can be trusted. And as we share more, we begin to make that gradation. But it's not going to be everybody that's going to be the gold trophy winner. But we have to have a few people that we can share anything with.
Ditto.
And what we're talking about is being able to tell which people fall in which category.
Well, and is it up for us to figure that out, or do we just walk through life and then people naturally show where they fall?
Yeah, and then you go, right. So in other words, the level of questioning and the level of where we're going, the person is encouraging us to go deeper. And we trust the person enough to go a little bit deeper. We may not want to go all the way till we're sure, but the person questioned then invites us to share more, not just the facts, as you say, but the feelings that they evoke. oh, that made me so sad when that happened, or whatever. Bethany, is there any last thing that, we have to come to a close, but I wanted to ask if there's some last words that you want to share, sort of summarizing what we've just been talking about.
Well, we covered so much today about where to be in the listener and then also the talking role. And I'm just curious, and mentioning this curiosity is I can't wait to hear where we go from here. And being in both of those roles, not only looking for that safe place, but seeing how it looks like when we can really share our story with confidence in a way that we can emotionally connect with other people.
Yeah. Well, I think for closing, for me, this has been fascinating because sometimes I'm such a BS artist sometimes that I just talk and don't even think about some of the other things that we've been talking about, which is too bad for me and probably for my friends. But it's valuable what we've been discussing, and I hope that our listeners have gained a greater appreciation of what it takes to really make friendships work, because it's both being the listener and the talker that we make connections, and we have to feel confident to be able to say things and to also know when to be silent. And next week we'll be together again, talking some more about this very thing, and appreciate everyone being listeners right now to the two of us talking, and to you, Bethany, for diving in with me. And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to send us an email to aftersight.org, feedback, aftersight.org, or to phone us at 712-8856. And, we'll leave a message and we'll get to us. Thank you all for listening in, and join us for the next episode. Thank you.